up you guys, Gongrongzong here. Red Dead Redemption 2 RDR2 was recently released for PC and will be released on Steam soon depending on when you watch this. So it's my hope that this video can help you to decide whether you should purchase this game or not. Just to be clear, this video isn't trying to say that RDR2 is a bad game. It most certainly isn't, and is in fact one of the best games I've ever played, hands down. But I would like to bring out certain aspects of the game that may or may not appeal to you or your playstyle, in the hopes that, you wouldn't end up spending money on a game that, while overall is absolutely amazing, may or may not be personally suited for you. RDR2 basically consists of two parts, the single player campaign and the online segment, Red Dead Online. I'll go through the single player part first, as that is by and large the majority of the content of this game. The first feature of Red Dead Redemption 2 that may not appeal to you is that it is extremely story and dialogue driven. And when I mean extremely, I truly mean extremely. If I may compare this to another open world RPG such as, say, Skyrim, which is about 90% combat and 10% talking, Red Dead Redemption 2 is about 50-50. 50% narrative dialogue and 50% combat. In fact, every quest that you do, main quests or side quests, consists of a cinematic portion where the NPCs explain their motivations or backstory. This is almost always accompanied by a significant part of the actual quest simply being on horseback, traveling down the roads as NPCs continue to converse with one another or with the main character that you're playing. Again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and I think Rockstar have done a phenomenal job blending the two usually differing aspects into a wholesome package. But I definitely want to place emphasis on the fact that the single player experience is not all guns blazing horse combat, as is typical of most Wild West fantasies, or as what could be interpreted from the trailer or game description. A significant part of the content will be about going through in-depth conversations with your fellow NPCs, spending time in your camp interacting with others, and exploring multiple dialogue options that change and are personalized on your choices and actions. It is all about the characters in the game growing together as a whole, cooperating and conflicting with one another, and how that grand narrative turns out in the end. So, while there is a sizable amount of combat in this game, which has been done really well, I may say, I really enjoyed the combat portions, just be aware that it is only one part of the game, and you will be missing out on a big part of the experience if exploring the grand narrative isn't your type of playstyle when playing a game. Nevertheless, it's not only about combat and dialogue options in this game. Exploration plays a huge part in Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's talk about side quests first. Some side quests will be explicitly showcased to you, such as being available from key NPCs or being marked out on your map. However, there are many other extremely interesting and extremely fulfilling side quests that you have to discover on your own. Some may just be obscure dots on the map that if you don't pass by, you will never encounter. Others will be seemingly ordinary NPCs calling out to you, but when approached, start a magnificent quest line that may even trump the main quest line. Without discovering these side quests, I dare say you might have a pretty incomplete experience with the game and your main character. And if you don't ride around the map regularly, you will most definitely miss out on a lot of them. Red Dead Redemption 2 highly rewards exploration. It is much more of a sandbox experience than an RPG, where the main quest is presented to you, but the world is your oyster. A big part of this game is just about riding through rolling hills and green pastures, taking in the beautiful scenery, climbing up snowy peaks to catch a glimpse of the gorgeous sunrise, camping beside a lovely lake and spending the day fishing, where time almost stands still amidst nature. I loved every minute of it, and Red Dead Redemption 2 world's design has really set a benchmark of what standard exploration in RPG games should deliver. But if laid-back exploration is not really your style, and you feel more suited to more linear playthroughs with tons of combat, this will probably be a point that you want to keep in mind. The massive amount of exploration may get boring for you after a while. Additionally, what's coming up next will be in direct reference to the fact that the PC version is a port of the console game. And it shows. For all the great points about Red Dead Redemption 2, this is one of the very few things that annoy me. It was very clear that the controls were, how shall I say, sloppily ported over, cut and pasted, with not much thought put into a seamless transition. It just didn't feel intuitive at all. There were simple annoyances, such as key bindings that you will have to go through and change one by one. One example of this being how your inventory screen was binded to the letter B instead of I. Like, what's up with that? I was actually thankful that hints kept popping up of what keys to press to access different items or actions, such as how to read a simple letter, as I would have been lost as to what key to press next. Another would be how your items will generally have to be accessed through the wheel options instead of the usual keyboard methods, as there were way too many items, and many of them critical for combat at that, to be accessed with hotkeys. While this is the generally accepted practice for console, it was jarring and frustrating to me as a PC user. But what really topped it off for me was the fact that the sensitivity of the third-person combat just felt off for me. I don't really know how to describe it, but it just did not feel like third-person combat was designed with a mouse in mind. In contrast, it was way more effective to aim and shoot in the first-person perspective. However, this is far from optimal, as the game is not designed at all for you to be in first person. Movement is clunky, you can't see what you're bumping into, and you can't get behind cover properly in the first person. And God forbid if you're in the first person while doing mounted combat. So it kind of resorted into a third person subpar experience for the first person shooter gameplay. And that's generally okay and very much tolerable for the single player experience of the game, where you're just dealing with dumb AI. But it might be a sticking point for you if you're interested in the online segment of the game. So let's jump straight into that. I don't really know how else to say this, but the online experience was pretty much meh. It wasn't bad. If anything, it was pretty dang cool how a single player RPG could seamlessly transition into a scenario where your friends can pop in and out and do the same activities with you. But other than that, the whole experience just felt pretty much hollow and pointless. The first thing that I must put forth to you is that the only point of the online experience is cosmetics. There is no real power curve in Red Dead Online, no grind for more powerful guns, or the taking on of more and more powerful enemies. Money or gold is there for you to buy better items to a very shallow point, from which henceforth all additional money is converted into cosmetic gear for your character or weapons. And while this may seem highly similar to the actual single player experience, in how beyond a certain point it's just about collecting better outfits for your main character, and in that there's nothing inherently wrong with it, it begs the question of, then why even bother with playing online, when I can play and get a much more fulfilling experience in single player? There is no sense of a backstory for your character, there is close to zero character development, there is little attachment to him or her, he or she doesn't even have a voice, which makes quest interactions awkward as hell. Lots of side quests and achievements are removed from the online aspect, such as digging for dinosaur bones or hunting down legendary creatures. At this stage, RDO just consists of running around doing a whole multitude of meaningless side quests that contribute really nothing much to the sense of immersion. So yes, while I may be sounding a little negative about this, Red Dead Online truly is just a lesser version of the single player experience. A pretty bland sandbox with no other goal than to just get more money. Many others have expressed this from the beginning, that it was barely able to hold their attention, and found themselves going back to their single player playthroughs within a couple of hours and not looking back. Does the fact that you can play with your friends make up for this? Yes and no. You can truly have some entertaining moments while doing RDO quests with your friends, but without any true sense of progression, it still seems to be very much in a beta stage than anything, where at the end of the day you're building up all that gold and gear for nothing, really. At this point, I just want to address a key issue that many of you might have, and that's the potential ganking or griefing in Red Dead Online, because PvP will be a constant thing that you cannot turn off. And for that, I actually have pretty good news for you. I didn't really feel that ganking was much of a problem, and if anything, was pretty non-existent. Sure, every now and then you will have some guy firing off an unavoidable sniper shot at you resulting in your death, but that happened very rarely, perhaps once every 3 to 4 hours for me. there are clear deterrents in place for gankers, namely that they will be indicated as a red dot on the map and their names will glow red, for everyone to see that they are a low-life piece of scum and hunt them down to the ends of the earth. Which actually happens in towns a lot, where a ganker will kill someone only to be hunted down by everyone else and camped multiple times in the spirit of true Wild West justice. Victims of gankers can also freely place a bounty on their heads and set the law on them, resulting in even more inconvenience for the ganker. These of course don't stop gankers entirely, but have done a lot to improve the online experience from a trolling one to a cooperative one. Added to this of course is that you lose essentially nothing on death. And in fact, you can respawn pretty close to the person that ganked you, allowing you to exact quick revenge on him, with no death penalty and the ability to respawn very close to where you last died. Going AFK in the middle of nowhere didn't even bother me, because if I died, I lost basically nothing. However, when taking everything as a whole, I must warn you that the experience of Red Dead Online will feel lackluster to most. Why experience the game in a suboptimal way, plus allow myself to be ganked at any opportunity, when I can play the game in a much more enhanced experience in the single player? There is much potential for Red Dead Online, but at this stage, it certainly hasn't come to fruition yet. If this was something that you were looking forward to when purchasing Red Dead Redemption 2, this is definitely a point you want to highly consider. If you feel that these features wouldn't be too much of a deterrent to you, then I would definitely recommend playing Red Dead Redemption 2. Taking into consideration that I love RPG games, this game is hands down one of the best single player RPGs that I have ever played. The story is fantastic, taking you from the snow-covered peaks of the north to the alligator-infested swamps of the south. The narrative, voice acting, and dialogue is phenomenal, with hundreds of lines of customized dialogue from a dozen unique characters that change based on both your recent and overall actions. The attention to detail is mind-blowing, from seeing your own imprints in the snow when you crouch down to the sun's reflection in a squirrel's eye. And the sense of immersion in this Midwestern cowboy environment filled with horses, trains, and bank robberies is simply impeccable. If you love RPGs, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that is worth the full price.